Welcome to the Integration Station. I'm Naturally Ashley, your host, here to guide you down the rabbit hole into the world of psychoactive plants, frogs, and fungi. Good morning, you beautiful souls. It's Ashley here, your host at the Integration Station. I've got a wonderful guest that many of you are familiar with. Her name is Cindy, and she is a Reefer Reporter at Pace Radio, as well as involved in many other shows. She's a longtime cannabis activist and reverend, among many other things. Cindy wants you to know that there's help and hope out there, so she's here to share her story with us today. We're going to dive into the healing powers of Iboga and 5Meo-DMT with Reverend Cindy. So you'll want to connect with her at Fairy Potmother, or by searching Cindy Howell on Facebook. I'm also going to leave all that information below. So without further ado, I'm just going to pass it over to her.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
The views expressed by the individuals during this broadcast are their own opinions, and they may not be the same as those of their group or other organizations they may be involved with.
Hello and welcome back to the Integration Station, you beautiful souls. I've got a wonderful guest here today. She's another host that maybe some of you recognize. For anyone who doesn't know, this is Cindy Howell joining us. And Cindy, well, she's been talking a lot about cannabis. She's also been working really deeply with some other psychedelics. So I wanted to really have her on here to share her stories and journeys. And and really, talk some more advocacy for these wonderful plant medicines available. So thank you, Cindy.
Oh, thank you, Ashley, for bringing me on. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing great. I'm really, I guess I can pass it over now. You can give an intro because I know you're doing a lot here on Pace Radio and you have a lot of other experience as well. So if you want to share a bit of what it is that you do, and then of course how you've found your way into some other plant medicines and frogs and fungi too.
I started with Pace back in the very early months of 2020, I believe, after being an advocate and an activist with cannabis for a long time. Into psilocybin at the both the same time. I started microdosing with psilocybin about a year before I got into Pace. I worked with Pace Radio, and I was invited to go see the movie Dosed. I don't know if you've heard of that one, the documentary Dosed. And that was really the beginning of my spirit walk adventures. But I suffered with PTSD and fibromyalgia and great pain, and cannabis really saved my life. It brought me to Pace Radio, and it brought me to psilocybin. And psilocybin brought me to the movie Dosed, which introduced us to Iboga when I was there. And being a lifelong, since I was 6 years old, sufferer of CPTSD, addicted to cocaine at one point in time, alcohol and pharmaceuticals. I watched this movie with thinking I was going to learn more about how mushrooms could help me, and so I watched it with great intent. And I had a pad of paper and a pen, and I watched it. And they eventually came to teach us about Iboga and helping to heal the woman that they were focusing on in this movie. And 600 of us sitting there watching it, taking notes, going, "What is Iboga?" And so we learned, and we watched this woman heal. And I knew watching the movie that it was my path. It was where I was meant to go. Everybody, all 600 of us watching the movie said, how do we find this at the end of the movie? And the people putting it on, the Halifax Psychedelic Society, said, "Seek and ye shall find." And we're like, okay. So I did just that. I sought all around Nova Scotia for almost a year, suffering the entire time. I don't know if you know much about PTSD, but it brings with it suicidal tendencies and thoughts, and I was fighting those hard just around the same time. And I had been saved from suicidal tendencies a few years ago as well, before that. So I was going through like a very dark, very hard time. This glorious medicine had been put in front of me, and I knew I had to go there. 8-ish months of searching for it, and I found nothing. Very hard to find people that want to talk about it openly. And that's why these podcasts are so important. So I eventually tripped across another podcast, or another documentary, actually. It was called The Psychedelic Frontier. It was put on by City TV in Toronto. And they followed the same shaman, Mark Howard. So halfway through this movie, as I'm sitting there watching it in tears, thinking I've got to find this medicine, I had an epiphany. As I'm watching it, I picked up my phone and I go to Facebook and I start looking for everybody that was in these 2 movies. And I found almost all of them. And I friended every single one, add friend. And then when it came to Mark Howard, I sent him a message and I told him a bit of my history, and the fact that I have struggled with addictions, and I had used cannabis and psilocybin up until that point. And I believed that Iboga was the medicine for me. He sent me off to speak with another person, Elizabeth Bast. She's one of the owners of Sol Centro in Costa Rica. And we had a consultation. We chatted for just under half an hour. And she said, I know who you need to go to. She goes, you go to this person over here in Vancouver. And she sent me to Inner Realms. And that eventually led me, of course, to going to Vancouver and taking Iboga, which is unbelievably incredible. And I went, quite literally, I walked in a shell of a human that wanted to die. And I walked out a full of love human that couldn't wait to wake up every morning and live life. And I don't really know how else to explain Iboga, except for I literally went from dying and wanting to die, and 5 days later, can't wait to live and excited to wake up. Yeah. And that was last July. That was just over a year ago. And it's been an incredible journey since. I went back last month in October. And I went on another journey, which was very different, because I didn't walk in with the suicidal tendencies. I didn't walk in. I mean, like they were trying to peak up again, but I walked in a much stronger individual. So my healing the second time around was completely different, but just as miraculous. Yeah.
Let's just rewind back to the first time, because this is going to be so valuable for anybody experiencing that. And I too, I've experienced the PTSD, the complex trauma, as well as CPTSD, and it's rough stuff, to be in that space. It's also rough to hold that space for anybody else that may be going through it too. And as a mom and a daughter, that there was what you were going through was obviously impacting many, and what you're going through now through this reawakening and rebirth, that's making changes in many people's lives as well. It's like a fractal effect, or a ripple effect out. And this first time when you went in, what was the experience like?
It was scary, because I had no idea what to expect.
Because the movies don't say it all, because it's very individual, right?
It is. It's individual, but after chatting with a lot of people that have done other spirit walk medicines, or the same one I did, it's very different, yet very similar. When you go into these things, they start you off with a handshake dose. So they give you basically 1/5 of what your flood dose would be. And they say, it's going to take, 2 to 4 hours that you're going to be in spirit walk. I was gone for 7.5. Unbelievable. They told me I was very open to the medicine, but they dose you up slowly. So they gave me my first bit of the handshake dose, and then half an hour later, they checked my vitals and gave me the second bit. I had no idea what to expect. We were watching a documentary on 5-MeO-DMT while this was going on. My facilitator said, you're going to feel heavy. You're going to want to lay down. Like you're just going to want to lay down. And not long after that, your eyes are going to get heavy and you're going to want to shut them. And that's when the spirit walk will happen. And I said, okay. I got heavy. I laid down. My eyes got heavy. I closed my eyes. And for me, everything was bright white. It was bright white. And there was nothing else. Like, I mean, I could see my hands, but everything was bright white. And this voice, this booming male voice came out of nowhere. And he goes, "Hey, Cindy, I heard you came here to heal." And I kind of looked around. I said, yeah, I did. That's why I'm here. And this hand and this arm came out of nowhere. And okay, we'll take my hand and let's get this going. Took the hand and off I went. And the next thing you know, I was on the back of an eagle, flying around the world. It was unbelievable. I eventually found out in the flood dose that the eagle was my mom carrying me. That one still kind of makes me tear up. So we faced probably my biggest demon during this particular retreat. I went back in for the flood dose, which was the next day. I was in there and I was, doing my thing, because I don't know what to expect. And so finally I'm sitting there going, I'm not feeling any different. And I said this in my spirit walk out loud, and Iboga says, well, you have to heal where you were first hurt. And I'm like, well, we did that. And he said, did we? And I'm like, I don't know. You take me to where I was first hurt then. Because, I thought we went there yesterday. And so he took me to a year and a half before my first bad memory. And he said, this is where it was. And this is the little girl. And this is what happened. And we were able to work. And that scared little girl that was first hurt, we were able to convince her with my mom's help to come out of the shadows. So at the age of 49, this was when I was first went, for the first time since I had been 6, I felt complete, because we were able to get this little girl that had been hiding away, so scared, living in fight or flight, to come out and come back to me. So I was complete, and that fight or flight that I had been living in for 49 years was gone, which was an unbelievable freeing feeling, especially when you don't know that you're living in fight or flight. And all of a sudden I could look back and say, oh my God, I was being a bitch, but I was fighting because I thought I had to save myself. This is not what other people are going to see, but I could finally see what I was doing on the inside. And it was freeing, and it was eye-opening, and it was peaceful. It was very, very peaceful. Iboga was very gentle with me the first time. He held my hand and he walked me through, and then he brought me to my mom and my mom's ancestors, and everything became very Aboriginal because my mom was Cree. So her father was there, and then all of my female Aboriginal ancestors were there. It was unbelievable. I was given my spirit animal. I was given my color. I was told I have to honor the indigenous part of me, and it was absolutely incredible. And then after that, Iboga took me to the Rainbow Bridge, because after I did all that work, you got to have some fun. So he took me to the Rainbow Bridge, where I got to visit my animals from my life, and that was incredible. So yeah, it was healing in a way that I never thought I would be able to. Yeah.
Thank you so much. It's a beautiful share, and I can tell that you're so passionate about this. Like, it's all still no matter how many years has passed, it's still so real and sacred. And
yeah, I was very lucky. My facilitators would, if I woke up during, or I shouldn't say if I woke up, if I came back to my body during this and became cognitive again, and opened my eyes and chatted with them, one of the facilitators recorded everything for me. So and when my mom came, because when we had to coax the little girl out of the shadows, she wouldn't come for me, she came for my mom. And my mom brought her to me, and so I was able to take me from my mom and absorb me back. And I was, my physical body was bawling during that. And it's really the moment that I healed, and we were able to videotape that. So I've got on video that moment that my mom was there and I healed.
What's it like watching that over? Seeing, because
I'm weepy now, but when I watch that, I go right back to that moment. I can feel myself absorbing that little girl. I can feel my mom's arms around me again. I can hear her telling me that she's proud of me for taking this step to heal myself. And it's overwhelming. I cry every time. And I don't think it's a bad thing. I think it's a beautiful release of beautiful emotions that, a way to send my love to my mom. Right. So yeah, it was very spectacular. It's still very emotional for me, and I highly doubt that'll ever change. And then, I 2 days after my flood dose, I went to the mountains in BC, and we did some 5-MeO-DMT, which is the frog medicine. And that, wow. I fell in love with myself for the first time since I was 6. And it was the most incredible feeling. And I think everybody should do 5-MeO-DMT. I think that it's something that when you, whatever age they deem it to be appropriate, everybody should do 5-MeO-DMT, and we should all do it every few months. It's a beautiful medicine. It taught me to love myself. It taught me that I am love. It taught me that the only thing that matters in the universe is love. We have to love people. We have to accept their love. We have to be love. And if we love, we will heal. We won't just heal ourselves, we will heal the world. Love. You are love, Cindy. You love yourself. And that's what it was. I had the creator or God or the universe, whatever you want to call that higher power, came along with a weighted, in my second trip of DMT, came along with a weighted blanket of love, wrapped me up and said, you are love. You must go love. And he hugged me. And it was a beautiful, amazing experience. And I mean, how true is that? How true is it? To change the world, you must love. You must love yourself. You must love others. You must allow others to love you.
Yeah, that's probably the hardest one for me, is the allowance of love. Like, I've got kids in my life that love me fully, a partner that loves me in ways that I don't even understand. And I'm like, I'm still learning this. I've been working with psychedelics many years, and I get it, and I understand. I'm learning to understand how to love, but to the accepting it, I think I still am resistant.
It's hard. It was one of the things that Iboga told me in this journey that I went to last month. I have to be open to accepting love, because I've cut myself off from that for so many years that it's time. And not just accepting love, but allowing myself to be romantic at the same time. Like, all forms of love, I have to learn to accept. And I've had DMT tell me that, and now I've had Iboga kind of reiterate that. So, I get that. And I think I've mastered loving. I think I try to not, I haven't mastered being completely non-judgmental all the time. I think that's part of my
biggest mental saboteurs.
It is. It's I'm really good at recognizing it and going, but I haven't mastered not doing it. But I've mastered loving. I can love somebody and not like them at the same time.
Yeah,
I've mastered that now. I got taught that, almost 2 years ago now with the 5-MeO, and it's something. I think it's what I clung to and really took away from that, is that you've got to love. You may not want to sit at the same table as somebody, but you got to love them.
Yeah, like what Tupac said, I want you to eat, just not at my table.
Not at my table. That's right. Yeah, I that one goes on in my head a lot, and even though I can't get rid of the complete judgmental, I'm learning more about the understanding. Like, I can take a look at myself and go, "Ooh, I did that before, and this is why I did that. Ooh, I wonder what happened to them." So I've become more understanding in that side of things, which will help with the becoming less judgmental.
Have you ever done any of the Ho'oponopono work?
No.
It's the Hawaiian forgiveness technique, and it's really only like 4 words that you repeat over and over again. It's I'm sorry, I love you,
Please forgive me.
Yeah, please forgive me.
And I can never remember the. Yes. Yeah. I'm sorry, I love you, please forgive me. And then there's one more that I can never remember. But I now that you say it, I have heard of it. And somebody sent me a song to remind me. Like, it's a song about that.
Yeah.
But I could never remember the song
one. I haven't done the song one, but there's a meditation. It's like 30 minutes, and I had it when I was first exposed to it. For this reason of, like, just, the detox and the integration work between things, because you get these messages that come through. It's like, here's your work to do, but then you have your real life where you actually have to do that work. So that was one of the things that came through, and I did this meditation over and over every night for months. And it's crazy that I still can't remember the 4 words. But in the time when I was doing that therapy for myself, there was a huge shift inside of my body for that. And one of the things that I got out of it, I think, was detoxing out the judge as well. I mean, it's still there, it comes up, the awareness is there, but
I think it's part of being human. We can't get rid of, some of that stuff is meant to be there, and it's meant to be there to protect us.
Yeah, because we are still, we don't have to live in survivor mode, but we're still surviving.
Yeah, I don't feel like I'm living in the fight or flight mode anymore, but some of those habits are always there. And I am human, and humans aren't perfect, so I have to give myself that. So when I do catch myself being judgmental, I shake my head and I go, okay, I can't do this anymore, but I can't be mad at myself for it, because it is just a human reaction, and I am just human.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah.
So how is it different this time that you went back for Iboga from the first time? You went in this time feeling good and knowing what the experience is like. I saw you before you left, and you were bubbly and fun. It's not like the you that you were talking about there for the first. So.
No, I mean, when I decided I had to go back, I was getting some cravings, specifically for alcohol. And that was creeping up. And that's what made me decide I have to go back. And then I was going through some depression. I was doing really good at hiding it. Thank you very much. But it was there. And it was coming from trying to fight the feelings for alcohol. And then one day the feelings for alcohol were so strong, and I got, I know how to get out of this. I can just kill myself. Holy shit, I have to book now. And that's literally what happened. And at that point in time, I picked up my phone and I called Blair, and I booked, and I was able to hold on to that. And that made me so excited to go. I had something physical to hold. I've got a date now. I'm going on October 14th. And that gave me a lot of strength, and it gave me a lot of excitement. Because the first time, like I said, Iboga was so gentle with me. He wasn't gentle the second time. Not at all. I went in the second time, and I went in with the intention, I said, I have to learn how to forgive myself, because I had that negative tape playing in my head of, oh, you've done this wrong. You said this wrong. You shouldn't have done this. This was terrible. Oh, you're evil. You're terrible. And it would, all these things were hitting me in my head. So one of my big intentions was, I have to forgive myself. And boy, howdy, when Iboga helps you forgive yourself, he really whacks you hard before you do. So I went in for my handshake dose, and in my handshake dose, there was no hand reaching out to help me. There was no gentle voice saying, I hear you've come to heal. There was no rides on the backs of eagles. There was none of that was there. It was, hey, I'm going to kill you. And that's what the first thing that Iboga said to her, I'm going to kill you. And it was a terrible experience, you know. 4 hours later, I came out of it and I talked to my facilitator, and I'm like, the only thing I can tell you that happened is Iboga said he's going to kill me. So I was scared. So I wasn't quite sure if I should go for the flood dose or not, right? It's going to kill me, right? Like an Iboga has, like, I mean, like it can kill people. So I would go in for my second one, and the flood dose was everything that I consider that I have ever said or done wrong was played for me in a video form. I got to watch my life, and not the good parts of my life, every single bad part, every bad thing that happened to me, every bad thing I thought I did, every bad thing I thought I said, every bad thing somebody else told me I did or said. Everything was played. I had an argument with Iboga. It was freaking me out. I'm saying, you know what? I don't want to do this anymore. So the spirit me closed my eyes, and Iboga's like, man, you're in the spirit world. You think that's going to stop me from showing you things? Come on. And so it started throwing more at me. So I'm like, I lie. So I can, you know what? I can be a sarcastic one too. And I'm like, I mean, if my physical body opens her eyes, there's nothing you can do. And so I did. My eyes open. And I'm laying there in bed with my eyes open for I don't know how long. And every once in a while, somebody would come along going, have a drink. Do you need a puff? No. Okay. And then, you know, eventually Iboga would force me to close my eyes, and the movies would start again. And it was not what I would call a good experience. We did go through some other stuff. I mean, because I had some other intentions, like, what's my path? You know, like, what am I supposed to do? What, you know, because I'm not sure if I'm supposed to work in psychedelics. I'm not sure if I'm supposed to go back over here and be an accountant. What am I supposed to do? And so I got some answers with that, and that was pretty amazing. And, you know, a few other things. But the big thing was these movies. And it was pure hell. I still had it in my mind that Iboga told me it was going to kill me, and I felt like it was killing me slowly by forcing me to watch these movies for 17 hours. Like, this is all the stuff you've ever done wrong, Cindy. So I came out of that feeling like a bag of shit. And my facilitator saw that. So we took a day off. And I told them what was happening. And the next morning we went back to work after a day off. We went back and we did DMT. And for whatever reason, I thought that I was having these bad trips with Iboga, these bad walks with Iboga, because I wasn't letting go. So I went into the DMT going, okay, I need to forgive myself. I need to let go. I'm holding me back. I need to break these chains. So I've had wonderful visuals with the NN-DMT, the plant medicine DMT, but when I did the 5-MeO the first time, everything was black. I didn't have any visuals. Everything was auditory for me. And this time, I had visuals with the auditory. It was pretty amazing. So letting go and letting myself go was the first thing that DMT took me and we worked on. And when I laid back and I exhaled and I went into the medicine, when I looked down at me, I had probably about 20 to 30 sets of arms wrapped around me. They were all holding me. They were holding me back, and they're all the different versions of Cindy, the little girl, the funny Cindy, the bitchy Cindy, the whatever Cindy. They were all there holding Cindy back. And so I was saying, oh lad, it's like, okay, well, you got to let yourself go. You got to break these chains. You got to get out of this prison. Like, you're the one holding you back, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I kept repeating this stuff to myself until I saw the arms start to open. And they all opened. Every single one of them opened. And then I was soaring. And I was soaring so high, and it was so beautiful. And it was so loving, and it was so freeing, and it was so peaceful. And so, I mean, DMT only lasted about, 15 to 20 minutes. And I came back. And I said, I need to go again. About the same strength. So they got it ready for me, and I went again. And you're sitting up and you inhale the vapor and you lay back and you exhale. And there was no holding back. I didn't have to fight to go up. I didn't have that feeling of being pulled back. I mean, like, I laid back, I exhaled, bam, I was soaring. And it was the most freeing feeling in all of this, in all of the mushrooms I've done, and all of the plant medicine DMT, and all of the Iboga. It was the most beautiful thing. And then Blair told me probably about 2 minutes after I went in, the lights started flickering in the room. And it was at that point in time that my mom showed up. And we got to talk. So Mom and I chatted for probably about 10 minutes. And Blair filmed it all. Because once she saw the lights flickering, she knew something was going on. So she filmed it for me. So I've got that too. I haven't watched that yet. But I've got that too. And I'm really excited to have that. So both times that my mom was there helping me heal, Blair got on video. And I'll never let either of them go, right? Like, they're just absolutely precious pieces for me. So we chatted for about 10 minutes, and we hugged, and my spirit hugged hers. And of course, I didn't want to let her go because she wasn't there for the first 2 Iboga trips. Like, I was expecting her to be. So I didn't want to let her go. And I remember trying to hold on to her. And she kept pushing me back in my body and saying, "No, Cindy, I have to go. You have to stay." And I kept hugging her and kissing her. And so she finally got me back in my body. And then she grabbed me by the face. She kissed me all over my face. The 3 of us are in the room bawling because my 2 facilitators are bawling. I hear them blowing their noses and bawling. And I've soaked my mask. I absolutely soaked. And Mom was there in the first one. And Mom was a plus size lady like myself. So, but the woman that came to me in my first trip with Iboga, my mom was a very athletic woman, and she was dressed in a blue warrior leather with feathers, beads, and she looked absolutely unbelievable, right? And so in the DMT, and I threatened to have somebody work with me to do a portrait of her. So when she was leaving the DMT, she finally had me back in my body, and she kissed my face, and she was backing off. She goes, "Oh, and by the way, get that portrait of me done." And then she starts shaking her hips. She goes, "Because I look good." And I'm like, "Yeah, okay, Mom." So, yeah, it was spectacular. And, that would be something that my mom would say. I mean, it was most definitely my mom. I mean, I believe in this medicine, and it gives you the ability to do this. And yeah, it was spectacular. So that afternoon, Gareth said we should do another small Iboga one. He goes, "More than the handshake, but not as much as the foot." And I said, "Okay." So I went on a 5-hour spirit walk again that afternoon.
Yeah,
and we had
sorry to interrupt, Cindy.
No.
We're gonna cut to commercial right now.
Okay.
This will be a perfect time, and everybody's gonna stick around because we want to hear the rest of this story.
Okay.
But I'm gonna cut it off just for a minute, and I'll see you back here right after the commercials. Okay?
Sure.
Bye, love.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
Growing your own cannabis is easier than you think. Whether you're growing for recreational or medical purposes, BMA Hydroponics has everything you need to succeed. From the standard 4-plant recreational systems to the latest cutting-edge hydroponic equipment, BMA can customize your package and do it at discount prices. Visit BMA Hydroponics at 404 Maitland Drive in Belleville and ask us for a free estimate. Or call 613-967-9888 and we will give you an estimate over the phone. The only way to go.
In February of 2022, the Victoria Cannabis Buyers Club and Ted Smith were fined $6.5 million. This for helping 8,500 patients with access to medical cannabis. In our interview with Ted, he spoke to us about how people can donate to help in an upcoming court challenge. And here is part of that interview. From what I've seen lately, I believe that you've got something that you're trying to do as far as fundraising to deal with this next workshop.
For now, people can write checks directly to Jack Lloyd Law Corporation or send e-transfers to save the BCBC at gmail.com. I guess those are the two easiest ways for people to help right now.
What do you find at paceradio.net? People advocating cannabis education.
Did you know that the Pace Radio Network isn't just a radio network? That's right, because most, but not all of our programming is now done via video and is then podcasted at paceradio.net. So if you want to watch our programming, you'll find us on the Pace Radio Network's Facebook page, plus the show's own page, and you'll find us live on the network's YouTube channel. And don't forget, you can find it all, video and audio, at paceradio.net.
Cannabis edibles are an effective way to manage pain and other ailments, especially when you deal with your trusted partner, Legacy 420, in Tyendinaga Mohawk territory. You see, we lab test every product on site to ensure proper dosage every time, which is critical when consuming cannabis edibles. All Legacy 420 edibles are made by our classically trained baker and chocolatier, and we also have super tasty vegan options.
Our baker has been in the industry for 25 years. She's also a chocolatier. Everything from savory to sweet, your chocolate bars, brownies, butter tarts, you name it, we make it.
Talk to our knowledgeable Cannatex about our incredible variety available. Give your trusted partners a call. Legacy 420 out on your road.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
Welcome back, Cindy. Listeners. So, we were just talking a bit behind the scenes here, and I'm like, Cindy, you're gonna have to repeat everything. She hit on so many important things. You know, I want you to continue your story, and then we'll come into like some of these legalities and like the accessing of the medicine and things like that too, because it's all there's a lot of value here. I'm grateful to share this time with you.
Oh, me too. So yeah, I think we were talking about my third Iboga ceremony during this last retreat.
Yeah.
So I had just come off the DMT, and we had decided that I was going to do a smaller dose of Iboga, bigger than the handshake, smaller than the flood dose. And so I went into this after being told I was going to be killed, after seeing the videos of everything I have done wrong in my entire life, but then also after having a beautiful DMT experience. And so I went into this Iboga, and it felt like the first time again. There wasn't a bunch of craziness. There wasn't a bunch of movies. There wasn't a bunch of work, as it turned out to be. I went in, and Iboga was once again very gentle, and he was once again very kind, and it was once again very peaceful. And he said, okay. He said, and here we are. And he took my hand, and he said, are you ready? And I said, sure. And then everything came clear. And we had a funeral. We had a funeral for the part of me that he told me he was going to kill. And he did it. And that part was the negative Nelly, the Cindy that sits in the back of my brain going, you're terrible. You did this wrong. You're horrible. You did that wrong. You're evil. That Cindy, that tape, we buried her. And we put a headstone on her. And we had a funeral, and we said our goodbyes, and we let her rest in peace. And then when I did come back, when I put my feet on the ground, as I call it, and opened my eyes, and I was back in my body, and I was back on Earth, the tape is gone. For me to tell you what that tape used to say, I can't remember anymore. It's gone. And those bad things that I believed I did, or those bad things that other people told me I did, they're memories now. And that's all there. So instead of having somebody say, do you remember what you did 20 years ago? And then get really mad at me. And then the old me would then beat myself up and agree with them, and everything would come back out, and that's gone. And I can look at that person now and say, you know what? I did do that 20 years ago, but that's not who I am anymore, and I don't live there anymore. So if that's the Cindy you want to know, I wish you the best, and I can walk away. And then it's all just a memory. And that's something that since I was 6 years old, I haven't had. Because that's what PTSD is. PTSD is having a memory, and it's not just a memory. You are there, you are living in it, you are surrounded by what happened to you or what you did 20 years ago. And you're there, and all those feelings that you had are coming back tenfold, and they're really more intense than they were the first time. And then you get that fight or flight, that fear that just hits you, and you freeze, and then you want to fight your way out. But everybody that's physically around you has no idea what you're fighting, because they're in the now and you're in the 20 years ago. And it's a hellish way to live.
It is. And, you know, there's this point with PTSD too, that like what you're saying, where you're like traveling back and living the past in the present moment. That it ties into depression so much too, because it's so much in the past. But what I think a lot of people who are going through that don't realize, what I had to realize for myself, is that it coming up was for me. You know, it wasn't happening to me, it was happening for me, because I was now in a place where I was safe enough to feel it and free it. You know, it's much like you had like all of those tapes playing over and over and over again, everything bad, and then you were able to, you know, have a funeral for that version of yourself. You know, and I think it's beautiful when you said rest in peace. I like, you know, I got a little emotional there too, because how beautiful is that, you know, you're able to do this, and that, you know, it's not just I'm burying that piece of me, like how people say like ego death. I find that's got like a very negative spin on it, but what you're saying is like you're taking that part, that voice, like the devil within, essentially, that hell, and you're saying, I even want peace for you. Like, it's okay, you're safe now, you can, you know, just rest,
go to sleep.
Yeah.
You know,
you don't
your job is done.
Present. Exactly.
Yeah,
it's beautiful. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Because we with my psychiatrist, whom I'm very lucky to have, we speak a lot of, well, why does that voice come up? Why is it up? Like, what is happening in your present life that is triggering you? Because what is the past me trying to protect the present me from? But the present me doesn't need that protection anymore. So anything that's different, or anything that brings up a memory from the past, that protection comes up. And I don't need it anymore. Like, I have healthy people around me. I have, you know, a healthy, you know, living environment. I don't need that protection anymore. So she's resting. I mean, she's, you know, it's only been a month and a half. No, not even a month, because I went on October 14th is when I started. You know, and I get that feeling that the hand's trying to pop up through the soil once in a while. And I tell her that, no, you're sleeping now. So you stay asleep. And then I feel that hand goes back down. So it's, I think it's going to be, you know, that's part of the integration for me, is I have to remind myself that she's not needed anymore, and she can stay buried. She can stay sleeping. She can stay resting, because it's not part of me that I need active anymore.
Yeah, and there's like the thing too, right? When you're talking about like what's triggering you in the present moment, sometimes it's really just the addiction or the default mode network, essentially, of this thing coming up. It's just always there, and now it's become your identity, and now it's taking over. I don't know if you're familiar with Napoleon Hill's Outwitting the Devil or Interview with the Devil, but definitely check it out for this integration journey. I think it'll be really helpful.
Very cool. Yeah. It's the last time the integration was very hard. I found that actually harder than the whole retreat itself, like coming home and having to be this new Cindy in the old Cindy's world was very hard to do. It bordered impossible. I didn't feel comfortable with reaching out to people. I waited for people to reach out to me. I came home from Iboga and I was nervous to get back into microdosing with psilocybin, or like, should I wait? Should I do this? I had a lot of those questions and I didn't ask them. This time I asked them. So I came home with all of my own medicines, right? And I can, literally do them whenever I feel the need to do them. And I feel confident in that because, I got a lot more explanation because I asked a lot more questions, which is another side effect of anxiety, depression, PTSD. You don't feel that your questions are important enough to be answered, so you don't ask them. And, it's something that the medicines have taught me, that it's okay. It's okay to ask the questions.
I just had a beautiful friend, and she is not very experienced with a lot of psychedelics, but she does work with the psychoactive plant, cacao. And the way that she explained it was really that the spirits are always above us, just waiting for us to ask questions. So then when we're sitting there with even like a hot chocolate, for example, or a coffee or anything that's psychoactive, the spirits are like, is she gonna ask? Is she gonna ask? Is she gonna, oh, no. And then they float away somewhere else, or they're disappointed and they'll still stay with you. But they're like, come on, like, we're here to help. They're just waiting for a job to do. And so when we are, open and, and honest with ourselves about what we want to do, making those decisions, making those choices, like asking questions is a choice. And it's one that we don't need to be scared of, because it's what's going to bring us to where we actually want to be. Yeah. And epiphanies are the spirits basically slapping you upside the head saying, it's about time you asked that. So when you have that, like, it's like, it's like, you realize that you've got some spirit up there that's going, I've only been trying to get that in your head for a year. And I mean, I had that happen any number of times. It's like this particular trip, one of the questions I had is like, what am I supposed to do? Like, I don't think I'm supposed to be an accountant my whole life. It's kind of like, and Iboga threw mushrooms at me. Every mushroom you could every fungi that you could ever possibly imagine got whipped at me in my spirit walk. And it's kind of like, he also reminded me that I had the epiphany about, I'd say 3 months after the last spirit walk, like the last Iboga, when it hit me that I'm supposed to be doing this. And I had one of those, I swear that the spirit was there, and it's about freaking time, Cindy. And, and then I lost that, and I had to re-ask the question. And that kind of annoys Iboga. You're not supposed to forget. He tells you stuff and you're supposed to remember, right? And I think that's why he was a little bit harsh on me the second time. But it's, you've got to ask the questions, you've got to listen to the answers, and one of the most important parts is you've got to follow through with the answers you've given. Because if the spirits are going to take time to give you the answers, you got to listen, you got to follow through. And that's it's a very hard part to do, especially for somebody that's coming out of PTSD. It's a hard thing to pick up and do, and hold on to that motivation and move it forward. And that's where I think continuing to do the spirit meds and the psychedelics help. Yeah, why the microdoses help too, right? Because then you can be an active participant. I find that it's a lot easier to hold on to the messages when there's a companion on your side walking you through it, like almost like a hand holding, instead of like, okay, now you're on your own, now what? Yeah, which is what I did the first time. I was like, and now what? And then I just sat there and looked around. And this time is much different. I am microdosing much more, and I've got more planned microdoses with Iboga. And with DMT, so I've been microdosing DMT lately too. I really enjoy it. The 5Meo? I know the NN DMT, the Mimosa hostilis, or maybe I'm saying it backwards. Yeah, I'm not sure what it's called. It comes from plants, so I just call it plant medicine DMT.
That way I don't have to remember to try and pronounce it all correctly. But yeah, the plant medicine, I've got some of that here too. I don't do that as often. I'm very much into the frog.
Yeah, I haven't worked with the frog one yet.
Oh,
it'll come in time.
It will. It'll come when it's supposed to come.
Yeah, I'm a true believer in that. I've never rushed any medicine that I've worked with. It's always been divine timing. Even when I was in the Amazon, I thought for sure I'm going to do ayahuasca, but when I was there, the shaman was sick, and I'm like, other people were going and they were forcing it, like finding another practitioner, rush. I was like, I'm good. Like, yep. I was good, just barefoot. I was taking in a lot of information. I was talking with shaman. Like, that was, I felt like it was enough. I was good. And,
and that's a hard one to learn, to let the universe guide you.
Yeah.
It's, I have been trying to set up Canva now for about a year, and everything just keeps falling through. And it's really hard to remind myself that, okay, it's not the right practitioner for you. You weren't supposed to be with it, was the wrong time, the wrong practitioner. And I'm learning to accept that, right? But it's a hard one to accept when you're integrating, that the universe is there. It's going to take care, and trust it when it shows you these signs, like you did so well. Like you were fine. Okay, I'm barefoot. I'm going to go do this. I'm going to talk to these people. And that's a really hard thing to learn.
Yeah, I learned different lessons from them. None of it was what I expected. And I think that was one of the greatest gifts that I got from that experience, is to just not have expectations and just trust that it's all okay. Like, I realized, I tried to kill myself a few times when I was a young teenager. And so when I didn't understand why I was here, why I lived. And then as an adult now, I'm like, I really want to live, and I do see why I'm here. And I'm like, I have a long life ahead of me. I just, it's so crazy to go from one extreme to the other, but I really do feel that I have a long life ahead of me, and that, there's time for all of it. I'm going to have those experiences with the right people at the right time. And frog medicine, working with Canva frog medicine, that one was totally divine timing. It just, I pulled a druid card. I really love working with druid divination, and it was a frog, and I was working with a coach at the time, and so the card, it actually reads that, like, the frog is medicine. There's mushrooms in it too. So I'm like, oh yeah, it's like transition. They all work together. And I say to my coach, I'm like, I think you're the frog bringing me the medicine, because I was doing a lot of healing. So when I after breastfeeding my son for so many years, that was a break that I took off of mushrooms. So when I got back into them, I was just seeing some things, and some past life regression was coming up. Childhood traumas were coming up. So working with this coach, I was like, you are the medicine. You're helping me do the healing. And he's like, no, actually, the frog is its own medicine. Go find Canva. And I did. And as soon as I started looking into it, and I did all the research, I was like, wow, this has been showing up for me over and over and over again. And I found the right practitioner. My friend, she worked for she is actually president of the Amazon Rainforest Conservancy. So she was interested too. And we've done many ceremonies together. When I was called back to the frog medicine, again, it was such a synchronicity, because it was right when COVID happened. So all the lockdowns were starting. I'm like, I need to get out of the city and into the country. All of a sudden, I'm on like 300 acres on a permaculture pond. All of the lily pads are coming up. Frogs everywhere. The girl who owned the place was an author of a frog book. So everybody for like 80 plus years gave her every birthday, Christmas gift was frogs. Everything frog. I'm like, okay, I'm going back. I made the call right there. I'm like,
yeah.
So yeah. I'm a believer. I'm a believer that you don't have to rush these things. Just take it easy and let it come. That medicine didn't come to me when I was in South America either. Other things did.
Yep.
That's cool.
Yeah. So, I'm learning that. So I have gone through, I've chatted with a couple of practitioners. It's not working out. And the lady that's actually working out is my Iboga practitioners, the first lady that they entered, like they suggested her. And, it's going to turn out that that's who I'm going to end up being with. Right. And that's the universe telling me that I should trust Blair and Gareth a heck of a lot more. So I agree, right? I'm really excited to go back and to do Canva with their friend. I am looking at possibly doing some MDMA the next time I go back and doing a guided therapy session that way.
Have you ever worked with MDMA before, or that would be...
Not medically, no. Not with medical intentions, I should say, but I have, in my years that I was taking drugs, I did take a lot of ecstasy. Of course, it's always
little different because
it's a lot different.
amphetamines.
So I did that, and then I was eventually introduced to MDA and MDMA, and I enjoyed that because it was a very clean high, and it was all about just being happy and feeling good. But I took it. I knew that the MAPS Association was studying it, and then there were still a couple of friends that I have that are still heavy in addiction, and I still go hang out with them. And it was my drug of choice to use when they were doing whatever they were doing, and it kept me from wanting to do the cocaine or the whatever. Yeah. And for some reason, I trusted it because of the studies that MAPS was doing with it, and I had been following MAPS for a while to do with the microdosing. This was after Dosed came out, and I had done some of my own research, so I thought it was a good way to do drugs with my friends, right, without being becoming addicted, or falling back into the cocaine. And it did work. It worked for like a year for me, but then I'd never really looked at taking it the same way I would take Iboga or mushrooms or DMT or any of the other psychedelics. But I'm curious about this one because I have done it the way I've done it in the past. So I'm really excited to go do some work possibly with MDMA. And we have some plans, a couple of friends, we've got some plans. We're going to go up into the Maple Ridge area and go out into the forest, and we're going to eat mushrooms and hang out in the forest in the mountains of BC. So I'm super excited. I mean, this is coming up in April, and I can't wait to go back.
Yeah, one coast to the other, because you're on the East Coast now, and you keep going over to the West Coast. It's a long trip.
3 times in the last year. Yeah, no, it is, but it's becoming a second home. I could never move there. I've got a daughter and 2 grandchildren here, and I could never imagine not being more than a 30-minute drive away from them. It's they're a 30-minute drive away from me now, and I find it too far. So I couldn't imagine being on the other side of the country. But I love it out there, and I've got some pretty amazing friends in the psychedelic realm. A lot of stuff happens out there with psychedelics, and it's really exciting to go out there and heal. And I'm hoping to start learning. I believe that we need people in Nova Scotia to do some of this stuff. So I'm going to take some steps to learn how to help people with guided mushroom tours or trips or ceremonies, whatever you want to call it. And I'm going to get myself trained to properly dose people with the 5-MeO. I can see those 2 medicines being really amazing for some of the people that are here in the Maritimes that don't have the ability. Like, they could probably pay for the 5-MeO, but they can't pay to get themselves out to Vancouver or Regina, or even I know of another person in Quebec that does it, but I don't know anybody in the Atlantic provinces. I haven't heard of a single person in the Atlantic provinces that does the 5-MeO. There's a few that do the mushrooms, and I have
everywhere. Yeah,
and addiction is everywhere. I've met one person that does ayahuasca. He's a shaman in a little town called Bear River, and he works with ayahuasca. But that's it. I can go to Vancouver though, and I can start talking to people And I know 3 people already, but you start talking to people, oh yeah, well, buddy does ayahuasca over here, and they get 20 million, trip guides for psilocybin over there. And it's just, people are but that's because there are more addictions out there.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, if for every one person we have here, they have 1,000 out there. And that's why people are out there. But I still see the problem here in my own home province.
Yeah. And I don't think that's the only reason. I think they were just more upfront, because at one point in time, the provincial government was going after the federal government for the opiate crisis. And it is a huge issue. It was a huge issue when I was there, because I lived on Vancouver Island for a bit, and I loved it. But that's where I got the call that I had to get sober, because my lifestyle was a wreck, and I knew better because I had already worked with the medicine before. So it was, the spirits came through and they said, straight up, there was no avoiding the voice.
No, when it's time for it to speak to you, you can't get away from it. It's the same as in my spirit walk, where you're gonna close your eyes and the spirit world's not gonna do anything, Cindy, come on.
Yeah, you close those eyes, open the third eye, and if you close your third eye, your other 2 are observing whatever's actually in reality.
Yeah, it's just the way it is, right? So I mean, I feel that I'm supposed to work with some of this medicine, but I'm supposed to work with it here.
Yeah.
Just because our problem is smaller doesn't mean it's not as large. I mean, my population is also smaller here. We have, and a lot of the reason why people are out west versus here is the thinking. I mean, I start doing this stuff here, I'm going to be arrested 5 million times faster than anybody in Vancouver doing the same thing. And I have to understand and accept them. But that's also going to make my voice louder if they arrested me for healing. So that's my goal. I'm still healing myself. I'm still months and months and months away from being able to do what I want to do for other people, but I can still give guidance, and that's what I do right now. I mean, if somebody, where I am so loud about my healing, I get a lot of people reaching out and asking me questions, and I help them take a look at the medicines and figure out what's best for them to do, both best for them and best financially, because this stuff isn't cheap. I mean, a lot of this stuff is illegal, so you're paying a pretty good price to get somebody to do this for you, because it is illegal.
Cambo is legal, and I think that's one of the reasons why so many practitioners are saying it's not psychedelic. But trust me, if you know the definition of psychedelic, it is mind manifesting. But it's so much a body healer. Like a lot of psychedelics, you go out of body and you're in this other world, or you go into these other dimensions that are even inside of us. But Cambo, it's in body, it's body healing. There's still these experiences where, your ancestors may come through. One of mine, my practitioner was talking to my grandmother and sharing messages with me, which I went back and shared with my mom. But part of me knew that the messages weren't for me, that I was just the vessel to share with my mom. So I did that, but what I felt inside of my body was just full-on healing. The first time, the vomit from the purge was black. I'm like, okay, there's my past life. There's all the addiction from all the traumas I went through. By the third one, it tasted like sugar, and I'm like, okay, now it's that I have to get the sweets out of my body. And so there's all these messages that come through, but it's very body. There is still the spiritual aspects, but I find for body healing.
And that's why Canva was suggested to me in the first place. I have allergies and arthritis and fibromyalgia, along with the addictions. Because addictions aren't just to, people don't realize, they're not just to the drugs or the alcohol or the pharmaceuticals, which are drugs.
Behavior.
It's behavior. You're addicted to your trauma. You're addicted to your food, your sugar, carbs. These are addictions, and becoming unaddicted to my trauma was one of the things I took in to Iboga this time too. It's just okay, still fighting addictions. Alcohol has popped back up, sugar's popped back up, and it's about time I got rid of this addiction to trauma, because when things happen to you, especially at a young age, it's like, oh no, oh, Cindy broke her leg. Oh, poor Cindy. Let's all make Cindy feel better. You get addicted to people giving you that when you haven't had that because of, breaking my leg wasn't my trauma. My trauma was childhood sexual trauma. But because I went through that, I cut myself off from other people because I was threatened with, if you tell anybody, this is going to happen. So I cut myself off. So then the pity party to me was love. So whenever anything happened to me, I got a splinter and my mom would go, oh, poor Cindy. And she would make of me, right? That to me was love. So I very much became a pity party person. I was addicted to the trauma. Oh, this happened to me, and everybody would be, aw. And I'd be like, yeah, aw, right? And I fell in love with it. And I had to become unaddicted to that because it feeds the depression, and it feeds the anxiety, and it feeds the PTSD, and it feeds that negative tape that I finally have killed and buried.
It feeds where it started.
Yeah, so it was one thing that I really had to break the addiction to that. And we don't realize that when we're in trauma or when we have fully flared PTSD or CPTSD, we don't realize that that's an addiction. We don't. We feel that, okay, well, I thought this is my life. This is normal for me, but it's not. I can still tell my stories now, but I don't tell them in a way that I want people to go, oh, I want people to look at me and say, oh, holy shit, that was your past, and look at you now.
Yeah.
And I want...
They're like, that's possible.
Yeah.
When you see that a lot in groups, it's almost like an identifier now that, oh, anxiety. Now I'm in a group with other people who have anxiety. Now we can all talk about anxiety. And it's like, no, that is part of the addiction. I love that you're noting that, because once you're like, I turning the handicap into an asset, then that has its own ripple effect. And people are now getting like motivated of, I can do that too. Or there are tools out there, or, because nobody really wants to be there. So yeah. I identify with it, but it's the culture today.
It is. Yeah. So I in some chats, if people ask me what I've gone through, I become very open with it because somebody's going to identify with that. And somebody who thought they had no hope is going to say, oh my God, that happened to me. What do you mean? I can heal? I can become that? Yeah. Okay. How? And that's what Adrienne did for me in the movie Dosed. Here I was watching this woman who she had gone through, they never did tell us the trauma, and it doesn't matter, but she had gone through childhood trauma of some sort. She had ended up a functional addict, and that's where I was. Nobody that ever looked at me had any clue that I was on coke or constantly drinking or like on such large amounts of pharmaceuticals. I hid it, and I hid it well. And I had a father who had some money, so I was able to hide it well. My parents didn't even know. My father only found out 2 years ago in October what happened to me when I was a kid, and then the fact that I was this functional, addict all of these years. And he knew about the suicide attempt, but that was really, and he knew that I was depressed, but that was really all he knew. So I was very much a functional addict, So when I was watching Dosed and I saw this woman who had support from her parents, but yet she was this addict, she was much more open with it than I was with the addiction. But then you see her at the end, and then they show her a year later, and here she is speaking to large groups of people, and she is working, and she is going to school. And I thought, well, I'm sorry for swearing, but I thought, well, fuck, I can do that. If she can do that, living in tent, well, and she wasn't, like I said, she was functional. She had a room in her parents' house, but she hung out in Tent City on the downtown east side of Vancouver. She came from that, and look at her a year later. Well, if she can do it, I can do it. because I got myself off my addictions with cannabis. Like that's where cannabis came into play for me. Cannabis helped with my addictions. The psilocybin helped some with the anxiety. I was able to get out and do more things. I would never have gone to see that documentary if I wasn't microdosing with psilocybin. And never. My anxiety would have kept me back, and I never would have saw it. So cannabis was I've now called it the gateway medication. It is my gateway medication that took me to psilocybin. Psilocybin took me to Iboga. Iboga took me to 5Meo. Iboga and 5Meo are going to take me to Canva. And I'm healing more and more and more with every psychedelic, with every new natural medicine that I'm using. And I mean, it's such a beautiful experience. And how can I not want to share this with other people? Like, I mean, Adrienne did this for me. How can I not want to do this for everybody else I can? So I want to scream my story. So thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to scream my story, because if with any luck, somebody is going to watch this and going to say, whew, if she can do it, me too. And it's a brand new Me Too movement of we can get out of this.
That's a great time to cut to another break.
Okay.
And I'll have you right back. Oh man, thank you, Cindy.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
When you think of the number of unique products developed in the fields, kitchens, and labs at Legacy 420, it's hard to think that one stands out above the rest. But tell that to the thousands of people who have tried this amazing breakthrough product.
This is our sacred salve. This is actually our extra strength. It comes in 5 different strengths. It's all natural, all organic. It typically works within 10 to 15 minutes of putting it on. It's good for arthritis, it's good for inflammation, any kind of pain. We're very proud of it.
Sacred salve, so easy to apply, along with soothing relief. To select a strength that's right for you, come in and talk to your trusted partner. Legacy 420 out on your road.
Pace Radio Network, by patients, for patients, and for those who want to know.
BMA Hydroponics has everything you need to succeed. Visit our hydroponics superstore at 404 Maitland Drive in Belleville, and we'll show you how to grow your own quality cannabis for pennies per gram. We're open Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Saturdays from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. and Thursdays and Fridays from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. Call 613-967-9888. BMA Hydroponics. It's worth the drive. The only way to go.
CP operates medicinal cannabis signing clinic. If you want to grow your own medicinal cannabis and are located anywhere in Canada, then I'd like to suggest that you give them a call. They can be reached at 1-613-967-9888. That's 1-613-967-9888, and grow on with CP. Let's share PACE everywhere. That way it can help create peace. People everywhere advocating cannabis education.
Enjoy the buzz of legalization with Campbellford Lifestyle Shop. From lights to plant nutrients, books, consumption accessories, and more, we've got all your basics to grow or consume cannabis. Visit our info center or take a look at our piercing services and body jewelry, now available in-store through Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, 17 Bridge Street West, Campbellford.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
Welcome back, Cindy and listeners. Happy to have you all here. So Cindy shared a bit about her journey now with Iboga and 5Meo-DMT, her anticipation for working with Canva, I guess in April, so that I really can't wait. We'll have to have you back for that one too.
Yes.
And we've talked a lot about addiction and traumas. I guess what the big takeaway is that there is help available. Can you share a bit about how you found that help and how other people who are maybe going through these kinds of things can just get started?
It's still kind of a hard thing to really get started in. how did I find the help? I was lucky enough that somebody, we had a barbecue for a bunch of cannabis activists one day, and somebody gifted me a microdose, and that's really where everything started. A microdose with it was cannabis oil and golden teachers in the microdose. And he said, everything's going to be prettier, you're going to have more energy, and you're going to be happier. That's what's going to happen. And I'm like, okay. So I took that and off I went. And wow, what a day. And then it took me a few months to learn about doing it for myself. Because this was just somebody I just met there. I didn't know who he was. I had him on Facebook. I tried to reach out to him. He's like, I'm not talking about anything on here. And that was a number of years ago. And I'm like, I understand. We were going to meet, but they didn't end up meeting up. So, I had to search hard. The best way to get started in any of this is any of the folks, such as myself or Ashley, that are out here being very loud. And there are podcasts, psychedelic podcasts, actually all over the place right now. Reach out to one of them and start your journey that way and learn about microdosing. It will lead you, as we've talked, it will lead you where you need to go. If you are seeing this and you're going, this psychedelic medicine is for me, that's the universe saying you're right. And you need to start, go low and slow. You don't want to go and just jump in and just, take a great big, macrodose of Iboga or anything. You want to go in and you want to figure out which one is for you to start with, because there are a lot. If you take a look at the mushroom world, there are 20,000 different varieties of mushrooms.
144 minimum that are psilocybin specific. There's the amanitas and other things too. There's a lot of mushrooms.
Right? Exactly. There's a ton of mushrooms. There are 2 types of DMT that I know of. There's Iboga and Ibogaine. Ibogaine is it's a little easier on you derivative. Ayahuasca, San Pedro, peyote. There are if we looked them up, I've got a big old textbook over there that is just a list and a list and a list. So you've got to figure out which one is for you, because Iboga may not be for you. Ayahuasca may not be for you, right? So you need to figure out which one is for you. And it's a hard thing to do. So you've just got to start talking to people that are in the space, people that have done it, people that have gone on the walk and found what has called them and searched it out. I think mushrooms are good for everybody. So anybody that's starting out,
everywhere around the world,
literally. And you can get an app on your phone. It's a little mushroom app that if you take a picture of the mushroom, it's going to come up and tell you everything about it. It's so simple to know if it's
it is simple. And for anybody too that is allergic to mushrooms or anything, something to note is that oftentimes the mushroom allergy is actually of the spores for the living mushroom. So once it's dried, chances are you'll be okay. And in microdoses, that's how you can experiment and just see, am I okay with this? Sometimes a larger dose or working with fresh are delicious, by the way, and they're cool too. It's like an umbilical cord to the universe, like a very great experience. But for somebody allergic, that may be difficult to do because of the spores. But there's still options. You're not limited.
Yeah, and I never knew that it's the spores and they should let them dry. And very interesting. Yeah. So, mushrooms are a great way to start, an absolutely fantastic way to start into the psychedelic world. Yeah. If you're lucky enough, I'm unbelievably lucky because I have a psychiatrist that follows my whole adventure, and she's not just supportive of it, but she's for it. And I will never mention her name, simply because I do mention that she supports it and she's for it, and she has also unofficially prescribed psilocybin to other patients. And so she's taking a daring step, and I think it's amazing that she wants to step out of the comfort zone, because the SAP program that Canada has is terrible.
Yeah, I wanted to hear more about that, but first I really want to note that there are psychiatrists out there and other doctors and professionals that are doing this thing. So if you want to try this and you're too scared to talk to them, then maybe they're not the right doctor for you. Maybe you need to go find somebody you feel comfortable talking about with this thing. And if your doctor or psychiatrist is shutting you down or making you feel small, don't let them. You make a choice. Even though you're in Canada and it's free healthcare, you have a choice. Okay, you're not stuck with that person that is going to treat you badly. And I understand that there is that pressure. I went to school for nutrition, and when my son and holistic health coaching, like so many things, so like I knew proper health over it. And my son, he kept getting chronic ear infections as a child. I made mullein and garlic oil, that has worked on other people, but it wasn't working for him. And the doctor came in with these cowboy boots telling me you needed antibiotics, and I did it. I didn't need to do it, but I was pressured, me. And if I can be pressured, knowing what I know, then trust me, I get what you're going through. And let me just say, you have a choice. Like, I should have walked out and asked for another doctor in that moment. And I did eventually go and pay for an actual doctor, because I don't believe in the free healthcare system, because I've seen what comes out of that. More sick people, more people with more side effects, more people who need more drugs, so I pay for my doctor and I pay for my testing because I get what I need, and I'm pretty good.
So I mean, like, I have, extremely lucked out on the fact that this is a public health doctor, public health psychiatrist, and she believes in all of this stuff, and she's completely against pharmaceuticals. She hates writing prescriptions. She really, really does. So yeah, I'm unbelievably lucky to have her in support of
standing up, doing her thing too. Taking the time with you, hearing your story, asking you about these questions. It sounds like you're really comfortable in using your time together in a productive way. You're not hiding this and saying, oh, I'm going to take a little bit from here and a little bit from there. And, you get all these pieces. You're getting the whole experience.
Yeah.
That's so important.
It is. And, she has brought up the fact that as time goes on and things become just a little bit more lenient, that the two of us should do a paper together and then do a few speaking engagements. She thinks that it would be extremely powerful to have the two of us standing there telling the story of how psychedelics have taken me from somebody who wanted desperately to die to somebody who is so thankful to be alive. And it's something that in 43 years the public health service couldn't do for me, but in 5 days, Iboga gave me.
And it's your experience alone is gonna, give a lot of people hope. But there's a lot of doctors that want to talk about these things and are scared of their license and all of their credit and social life and home and everything being taken away. So a speaking engagement, I think, would be great, because she'd be inspiring a lot of professionals as well.
Yeah, and that's who she wants us to go speak to. She doesn't want to speak to my peers. She wants to speak to hers.
Yeah.
She thinks that once we, the medical profession, especially mental health, the psychiatry profession, is very much coming to a time. They're watching the experiments that are being done, the studies that are being done with mushrooms right now. They're listening to some stuff. The Canadian government, because they have been listening, they have this SAP program that came out about a year ago, Special Access Program, where you can get prescriptions for a lot of these psychedelic drugs. But they don't necessarily always have a practitioner that can give them. But they have, Iboga is on the SAP list. 5Meo is on the SAP list. Ayahuasca is on the SAP list. So you can get legal prescriptions for these medications. But we need providers in place that the government approves of to be able to give these medications once they are prescribed. And I don't believe, as of a year and a half ago, we didn't have that. If we have that now, I'm honestly not sure. But the last time I looked into it, probably about a year and a half ago, we did not have practitioners for Iboga or DMT. So I could have had a legal prescription, but then I would have literally nobody to give it to me. that has been trained. But we do have, my practitioner graduated from a university in Amsterdam. So he's actually a psychedelic practitioner now. He, graduated from university, piece of paper and the whole, but still not legal in Canada. But he's
there is a school program in Ottawa for psychedelic assisted therapy, I believe.
Oh, nice.
So, yeah, I don't 100% know like how I feel about it, to be honest. Like, just when it's going through a system, when you hear the stories of what happened with LSD and the history, and things get twisty.
They do.
And I'm just not 100% sure until the education system is corrected, until the medical system is corrected. I don't know how I feel, but maybe this is the correction that needs to happen. But if it's being administered by people who aren't working with the medicine, then how do they really know?
Yeah, and the great thing about the university that my practitioner went to, it's part of going to universities, you have to go and take these meds. So he could do all of the book work online, but when it came time for the practicum, he had to go to Amsterdam and he had to be there for 4 weeks and he had to take these meds when he was there. So it's very different than the Canadian education system. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, I mean, like I fully trust this guy, but I mean, we need people like him who are actually trained and have done these things to be approved by the Canadian government, so we can actually, have maybe some of these prescriptions and get that ball rolling. My psychiatrist would have been, she would have been willing to write the prescription and help me get it approved. But, we both know, I mean, both her and I knew that if we had done it, the first one once or twice would have been denied before being approved. That's when, and we, at the same time, we were looking in to see if there was any practitioners that actually did this, and there were none at the time. And then the paperwork that it gives her as a practitioner, like as the prescribing psychiatrist, is unbelievable. Everything has to be filled out in triplicate, and she has to answer this great big long ream of questions after
I'd want to know what those questions are. Like, what data do they want?
Yeah. And it's
that's what I'd want.
It was a crazy amount of work for her to have to do. To be able to write this. And so we just decided it wasn't worth it, especially with no practitioners out there at the moment that could give me Iboga. And
I love what you said. I'm just going to keep doing them illegally for now.
Yeah. I'm gonna heal myself illegally because the legal system didn't do any. At 43 years, and all it did was make me worse and make me want to, kill myself. Right? Illegally in 5 days, I went from I became, a very happy person, and so yeah. And then you quoted, who was it, Tupac?
Yeah, I want you to eat, but not at my table.
Yeah, we were talking about something else, so we were making wonderful quotes off camera here earlier. Yeah, because what were we chatting about? Oh, that's totally escaped me now. But yeah, I'd rather be illegally healed than legally dead, and that's what I would have been. I mean, because even though the last suicide attempt didn't work, the next one might have.
You wouldn't be here to be an advocate.
Yeah.
Share your story. That's, this is going to reach, even if it's just one person that's like makes the call. That's one more piece of hope.
Yeah. Yeah.
I got a couple more questions for you, Cindy. One is one that I ask all my guests, and that's if I was to give you a dandelion to make a wish today, what would be that wish?
It would be for all of these medications and all the drugs to be decriminalized worldwide so we could actually use them to heal people. And that there would be no stigma with the people who in addiction, so they would want to come forward. It would be glorious.
Yeah. If enough people were doing it, not only would the stigma go away, but even if it was still there, nobody would care about it anymore. That would be really powerful in itself.
Yeah.
I don't personally care how culture views it, just like I don't care that I got finger tattoos. I'm sure you don't either, culture
and hand
tattoos. Like that either. But, I don't really care about the stigma as much, but I do feel that if it was decriminalized, that a lot of people would care a lot less about the repercussions and that would just have a ripple effect. It would turn into a tsunami overnight, and it would be the good kind, not the one that they're naming after crazy women.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So
we are a storm, but yeah.
Absolutely.
All right. So lastly, Cindy, how can everybody reach you? They want to talk to you more.
Well, I am on Facebook under my name, Cindy Howell. I am on Instagram. My handle is Fairy Pot Mother, because I ran around during COVID and gave everybody pot. Or you can reach me, you can email me, howellcl@hotmail.com. And anytime people can reach out.
Yeah, thank you so much, Cindy. I'll definitely make sure that everything's clickable in the description below. But, you know, it was wonderful to have you here as a guest. We're going to do it again, you guys.
Absolutely. It's been a lot of fun. Thank you again. Thank you for letting me tell my story.
Yeah, thank you too. Bye for now.
Bye.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
The views expressed by the individuals during this broadcast are their own opinions, and they may not be the same as those of their group or other organizations they may be involved with.
BMA Hydroponics has everything you need to succeed. Visit our hydroponic superstore at 404 Maitland Drive in Belleville, and we'll show you how to grow your own quality cannabis for pennies per gram. We're open Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Saturdays from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. and Thursdays and Fridays from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. Call 613-967-9888. BMA Hydroponics. It's worth the drive.
The only way to go.
When you have a pain that's reached its peak, Legacy for 20, it's so unique. If organic cannabis is what you seek, here's your trusted partner 7 days a week. Suppository salves, vapes and drops, topicals, edibles, infused pop. Just when life seems like it ain't easy, at Legacy 420, enjoy a pop freezy. Lab tested products, make them the GOAT. Legacy 420 out on your road. Legacy 420 in Tyndonega Mohawk territory. Indigenous organic cannabis at its finest.
Did you know that the Pace Radio Network isn't just a radio network? That's right, because most, but not all of our programming is now done via video and is then podcasted at paceradio.net. So if you want to watch, yes, watch our programming, you'll find us on the Pace Radio Network's Facebook page, plus the show's own page, and you'll find us live on the network's YouTube channel. And don't forget, you can find it all, video and audio, at paceradio.net.
Enjoy the buzz of legalization with Campbellford Lifestyle Shop. From lights to plant nutrients, books, consumption accessories, and more, we've got all your basics to grow or consume cannabis. Visit our info center or take a look at our piercing services and body jewelry, now available in-store through Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, 17 Bridge Street West, Campbellford.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network